Hey, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Ronald.
And this is
the Middle School Ministry Podcast. Hey, Michelle, how you doing?
Is doing well, Ronald. How you doing?
Great. So we hinted at some big news last week. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it's okay to talk about this. We're officially a part of the Download Youth Ministry Podcast Network. I love the air horn noises. This is insane. Why? I mean, I'm all about this.
This is crazy.
Like, this is definitely like getting to play with some of my heroes and my best friends. I'm all about it.
Oh, it's insane. It's hard to put into words.
No, it like even when they had the original ask of us, like both of us were flipping out.
Oh yeah, I don't even know. It's still like hard to believe.
Yeah. So hey, if this is your first time listening to the podcast because you're just now finding out of it because of DYM, thanks. You guys are awesome. Welcome.
We love
talk
you
about
already.
middle school students, and they're crazy.
Yes, they are. And wonderful.
So, yeah, no, this is fantastic. I'm Ronald. I'm from San Antonio. I'm a middle school pastor way out in San Antonio. Been there for 6 years. Michelle, where are you at?
Yes, I am. I am Michelle, and I am from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a middle school director down in Foster City, California, which is basically like 20 minutes from San Francisco.
Yes. I was just recently in California, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll get to see Michelle. And I remembered that California is like the state of Texas. It's freaking huge.
You still got a little ways away.
We're like 6 hours away from you in the same state.
No, so you're so close and so far all at the same time.
Yeah, closer than San Antonio, but still really far away.
One of these days.
Oh, man. One of these days. I don't think you and I have actually been in the same room for the last 3 years, maybe 4. I don't know.
No, I haven't even been in my job for 4 years.
Okay, 3 years.
Yeah,
maybe
2 years.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh man. So, Michelle, I actually had a buddy of mine, which this is the best, and I wish this for every youth pastor ever. When a former student of theirs goes into ministry.
Oh.
Like the absolute best. And so this was a kid who I had in ministry. They were a 7th grade student, started at the very bottom when I was in Tennessee, and then moved up. I performed his wedding. Loved, his wife is super sweet. They just recently took on kind of together the bivocational role of youth ministers at their church.
That's so cool.
So getting to text back and forth with him and getting to talk with him has just been such a blessing to be like, he's saying, hey, going to start my first dating series. I'm like, oh man, I'm praying for you.
Amazing.
And so it's just been so cool. He texted me the other day and said, hey, you guys need to do an episode about serving students on the spectrum, meaning on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so that is definitely something that is huge and needs to be talked about. And so, Michelle, you said you've had a couple students who have been on the spectrum, who have been, and one right now, you said, is currently in your ministry.
Yeah. So I can talk a little bit. So we have one student right now who, he's on the autism spectrum. He's been diagnosed. I've talked with his mom a ton. I love having him in there. He's one of my favorite students. I know we're not supposed to have them, but he's just really excited to be a part of our group. And one of the special things about him is he can't always be around a lot of noise. And as we know with youth ministry, it's incredibly noisy often.
Super noisy. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has his own spot in the back of our room that he usually hangs out, especially when we're doing either games or the teaching and stuff. And he just needs to kind of take a step back. So we have this whole space dedicated for him. That's really fun. Awesome. And I have a leader who has kind of taken charge of hanging out with him every now and then, checking in on him. And it's been really cool.
No, I love what you just said there. Those 3 things are huge. So you've communicated with the parent,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of that is setting up expectations.
Right.
Hey, there is a wide span of what being on the spectrum could actually mean. Right.
Absolutely.
How high functioning, what are the issues? And so in communicating with his parents, you've identified a ton of the stuff that you need to identify right away, right? So like,
Mhm.
hey, loud noises cause him anxiety, cause him stress.
Right.
And even just by taking that step of talking with the parents, you then know, okay, how can we prepare as a ministry?
Yeah.
And then you've got a safe place. You have a place where it's okay for that student to go when it gets too loud, which is going to be every week, right?
Absolutely. And one of the big things about that is it's not a one and done conversation with a parent. Like that's a continual conversation that we are constantly creating that culture with, making sure that we're always checking in with them. Like, hey, how are we doing? How's he doing?
Oh, I love that.
How can we help?
Oh,
You
I
know?
love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, we even had his counselor has come into one of our Tuesday night small group times so that they can observe him.
Mm.
And that was really big of just allowing both the mom and the counselor to come into our space and just be able to feel welcome because, they were not a part of our church or anything, but we wanted them to know like, hey, absolutely. Like we want to help the student as much as possible. And if that means having you come in and help him a little bit, like we want you here.
100%.
Yeah.
And then you said that you've got a leader. Is it kind of like they're assigned to this student to be like extra aware or like kind of like a buddy, or how's that work out for them?
Definitely more like a buddy.
Okay.
They've actually been together since that student was probably in 5th grade. He's now in 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he's been a part of our ministry for a really long time. And this was the leader that he connected with the most when he first started. And he's the one that he feels comfortable being around. And so that
Great.
that leader has kind of took it upon and been like, no, I want to be there for him. And so he's honestly kind of just stepped up and been like, I'm gonna take care of him. Like I got him.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And of course,
So
like
what do
the
you,
other leaders are like engaging with him and stuff, but he knows, like the student especially knows if he needs something, he either comes to me or he comes to our leader, Kevin.
cool.
Yeah.
So question, what about your other students then? How do you communicate that? How do you work on the interaction between those students? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's difficult. It really is.
Yeah.
Like most of our students, they obviously know, because it's pretty blatant, that he's on the spectrum.
Sure.
And so most of the students are really great about it. They'll they'll try and include him. Usually he doesn't want to be included in things. But I always encourage them. I'm like, hey, go ask anyways. I know I know he always says no, but still go and invite him. And a couple times he has been able to actually like join in because he wanted to play the game or whatever. And it's been great. Like they help him as much as possible. He usually just kind of, hangs out a little bit further back in the group, but he wants to still be like part of a group. So it's a learning curve for a lot of our students who have never been around somebody with an autism spectrum disorder or really any sort of mental disorder. And so there are some that we really have to be careful of that have picked on him and have kind of bullied him a bit. And so we've had to talk with those students specifically and help them understand like where that other student is at.
Sure.
And why what they're doing is not okay on so many levels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, middle school students are known for their empathy and their social awareness.
Oh, they're just so sweet.
And yeah, they just know how to handle all these awkward situations. Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
So
we've definitely had to put
doing,
up some fires with that, of course.
Sure, but you're doing
overall,
you're doing both a service. Like as you have that conversation with a middle school student who is treating the student on the spectrum poorly, you can say, I need you to realize that what you're doing is wrong. And you need to see how that's going to work out.
Yeah.
And then that will help them in the future.
The student who's bullying the student on the spectrum is it's so much more about what's happening with that student who's bullying, right? Where it's like, you're not, you're not mad at him. You're not like, there's something going on with you. And so you're deciding to take it out on a student that you know cannot fight back against you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It says so much about the student.
Yeah.
Who is doing the bullying. No,
but have you had any experience with this?
We have actually. We have a student who we just had a student graduate out of the middle school ministry up into high school, who's super sweet, and the her disorder, as her parents explained it to me, it's just like, I want you to know, Ronald, that she is going to be everybody's best friend, and feel like you are already her best friend. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in talking with her and talking with our students and everything, we had a couple. I mean, we did a little bit of what you're doing. Noises never bothered her all that much, but it was a communicating to the parents. Hey, what are your students' needs? How can we help meet that student's needs?
Yeah.
And then whenever she would be in the room with us, which was frequent, I would communicate to both the leaders and a couple of students or two, like, hey, can you be by this student and just hang out with them and make sure that they are tracking in there? Because I'll often, I'll throw it out and I'll ask a question, and her hand would be the first one to come up most of the time.
Oh, totally.
And
Yeah.
I want her opinion, because she had good things to say, and so I wanted to hear. And then there would be some times when, the student next to her would just be like, hey, good job, you answered that question. And so we could keep on going from there to encourage her to say, we want to hear your voice. This is something that's important.
That's awesome.
But then to also understand, like, if I don't call on you, it's because I called on you for the last question, and I'm calling on two other students now, and that's okay. We can kind of navigate that, and the student next to her being able to be okay with it.
Right. That's really big too.
Yeah. And so for us, it worked out well. And I still see the student, they'll come up and give me a hug and be like, oh, I miss being in middle school. Like, miss you.
Yeah.
But I'm having a lot of fun in high school. And so
good.
Just to be able to know and understand, and then to take that information as a middle school pastor and pass it off to the high school pastor to say, hey, this is what we did with the student. These were our game plans. These are what worked for us, and be able to pass off that information to the high school pastor to then put tools in their toolbox as they then get the student.
Good.
The handoff, I think, is super important there.
Absolutely.
And again, communicating with parents. I think the way you spelled it out is just perfect. Communicate with parents, make sure they've got a safe place, or if not a safe place is what they need, the tools that they need to understand, okay, when I feel like this, I need to do this. Make the leaders aware, and then continue that conversation with students and parents as you go on. I think you nailed it, Michelle. That's awesome.
I think especially with you guys too, like, that's great. I think the handoff is so important, because we want them to feel safe, right? That's one of the biggest things, is we want to have a safety plan for them, and being able to have that when they're in middle school, and then transition that so it's not as big of a change when they get into high school, can be a game changer.
Sure. And because there's so much, it would be so easy just to say, hey, let's just have a class for the students who have different needs than the rest of us, and they'll just be in that class, away from the rest of the group. That like hurts my heart so much to think of that we can't be the kingdom of God, where we have all these different people who are differently abled and be able to be together all at once.
Yeah. Especially at that age too. Like, we have a special needs program for our church, for those that are in kindergarten through around 5th grade.
Yeah.
And that's been such a blessing on so many of our elementary kids. And I think there's about 4 or 5 in there right now. And they all range from different things. We have some with Down syndrome, who are on the spectrum, and it's just been such a game changer for them.
To be able to have a place to be able to, and then do they end up integrating at some point? Like, how does that work out?
That's generally the goal. Yeah. And sometimes, it's just not possible. But the goal would always be to figure out how we can integrate them in with the normal service. But we also, it's a big thing where we want the parents to be able to go into service and have that time of being able to hear from the word and be a part of that community. And so that's why we have that kind of special needs community of, hey, these students are going to be together. They love being there. Our leaders are phenomenal. And it's just such a key thing, I think, for those parents to have that and feel that their kid is safe.
Well, that's awesome. And again, that's working with the parents who are saying, this is how you can meet my students' need, which even in children's ministry. And then that's huge too, getting information from the children's ministry. Hey, tell me about this student. You've been with them for the last 4 years or 1 year. What do I need to know as they move into the middle school ministry?
Yeah.
Being proactive and getting that information is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for us, it was really important that, well, this was actually like definitely a God thing of, we had somebody who loved working with kids with some special needs. And she was like, if I was going to volunteer anywhere, it would be with this ministry. And so she literally created this ministry.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So she was like, I don't want to go work. I don't want to work in kids ministry. I don't want to work in students. I love working with students with special needs. And so,
man, I don't know. That's great. Yeah. That's great that your church has that. Great that your church has that open communication. That's fantastic, Michelle. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I know it's rare. It's so hard to start it. And if you're out there and you're like, I wish we could have that. So do so many. Like, we honestly got really blessed because of this specific person and just her skill level. She is a behavioral analyst. And so this is what she does for a living.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So it's so hard besides that. And keep pushing, keep working on making those kids feel safe, making those students feel like even though they may be different from the outside, like they are still welcome, they are still loved in that place. And finding them a buddy, finding them somebody who's going to walk with them through that time.
Good words, Michelle. I love it. Well, hey, if this is your first time jumping onto the podcast and listening to us talk about middle school students, we'd love to hear from you. If you've got questions about middle school students or how to reach out to them, how to minister to them, to their parents, to the special brand that is middle school ministry, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. You guys are amazing, and we're excited to be a part of now the Download Youth Ministry Podcast Network.
Woo!
Yeah, so
I'm going to do that all the time now.
Do it. Just like walking through the hallway, just
Absolutely.
at the church. Yes. Hey, thanks guys so much for listening. We will see y'all next week. All right.
Bye.